and welcome to the Ham Radio Guy podcast. I'm Marvin, and my call sign is W0MET. Whether you're an experienced ham or just getting started, this podcast is for you. We're bringing you the latest of topics, news, and information in all things amateur radio right here to this show. This is episode number 34. Subscribe wherever you get your podcast. In this feature, we are going to be talking about simplex and duplex operations, so stay tuned about that, and we'll learn more about that as we go. But in the beginning here, I want to talk about a couple things. One is a link I probably discussed in the last episode or maybe a couple episodes ago. And this was a product that I've gotten online from Amazon and that I found this to be very useful. And this is the black Dacron polyester rope. And it's great for using it as, antenna mast and just having a guy an end-fed half-wave antenna up into a tree and having to be able to pull it down. It comes on like I think a 500-foot spool. And just the other day, in fact, I had to go find some in my box of stuff, and I realized I'm now out. And I'll be ordering another spool of this myself to be able to use. Mass strain wire is great, or rope is great, but I find this to be very much the same quality as that. It may not last quite as long, but the price is definitely certainly cheaper. I'll leave a link in the show notes to the Amazon page for that. And I hope that, as field days coming up and into June and everything, you'll be able to utilize this rope for guying a small mast or a small tower of some sort as you go into field day or any of your summer POTA or SOTA operations. So look forward to that in the top of my show notes first and foremost in the beginning. So another thing I wanted to mention was newsletter sign up. And of course, you can find that in my show notes as well, where to sign up for that newsletter. I apologize I didn't get that out twice in the month of April like I usually do, once every 2 weeks, but I do try and get that out twice a month as well. So subscribe to that newsletter for the latest updates. Trailer items. I recently put a wireless LTE modem into the trailer there. And I've had it in there kind of before, but didn't really, use it for much or anything. I just more about setting it up and testing it, make sure it worked. And I went to go use a temperature sensor in there to be able to control what the temperature in there was for the summer. And what I found is the whole aluminum trailer is basically a Faraday cage. It is incredible to know how much reduction in signal I get inside that aluminum trailer. And I went out, was able to find my external MIMO antenna that I'll have to put on the roof very soon. I want to be able to use this for field day a little bit, so I need to mount this thing to the roof. So I'll have to get some more sealant tape and some Flex Seal to be able to mount this to my roof. But I was just totally surprised how much of a signal degradation I had with the LTE signals coming into that trailer. Now, I can't say I have a great signal here at the property already, but it was definitely, if I got 1 or 2 bars, I had nothing. So it was literally, and that didn't matter if it was AT&T or Verizon. I've got both SIM cards in there, and it just simply was not going to give me a signal out and provide that wireless signal outside that trailer either. So I'll have to probably look at getting some type of outside cord and maybe an extender or something to be able to get a signal outside of that trailer for it to come in as well. So we'll see what that looks like, but at least for now, I know it is a Faraday cage inside that trailer by all means. Well, let's not forget about who takes care of us, and I want to take a moment with the word of the show sponsor, and that is Dakota Lithium. The Ham Radio Guy podcast is powered by Dakota Lithium batteries, and in introducing Dakota Lithium, it is your outdoor power solution. Discover the ultimate outdoor power solution with Dakota Lithium. Lithium ion phosphate batteries deliver unbeatable performance and durability for all adventures. With high energy density and long cycle life, they provide reliable power wherever you go, from camping to off-grid living. Built tough to withstand extreme conditions, their batteries are a reliable companion in any environment. Choose from a variety of sizes and capacities to suit your needs and upgrade to Dakota Lithium today and experience the difference. Check out my link and save 10%. And I'm going to show you that real quick here, what that looks like as well. You'll see over on the Dakota Lithium webpage, just dakotalithium.com. Go over here to applications. Scroll down to ham radio batteries. Should be right there. And ham radio backup power solutions. You know, their weight is incredible. I have several of them here. They're really great. And, you know, they do charge really well. 11-year warranty with them. And, you know, you can't beat that by any means. And they have a variety of different solutions for you that you can choose from. And this little 10 amp hour battery, I've been using that a lot. It's great. Their solar panels, I've got one sitting here I need to be able to do a review on yet. But you can see that they've got, you know, some larger batteries here as well along the way that you can use. I mean, even enough to, you know, do a 3,000 watt inverter here and back up for home storage. So, I mean, they've got a wide variety of things in here. This is that folding fast charge 12 volt solar panel that I have. And, you know, again, it charges just in 3 hours with that solar panel. It's a little 60 watt solar panel. It's great. And so, anyway, they've got all kinds of stuff in here. Again, reach out to, you know, the dakotalithium.com and use the code HAMRadioGuy, and that will save you 10% on your purchase. So appreciate that and hope that you know, you'll take advantage of that deal as well. So I clicked the button, but I didn't want to go back right away. So always the fun of doing a show here for sure. So check that out as well. Well, if you'd like to help support the channel and become a patron, look for me over on patreon.com/thehamradioguy. There's 3 levels that you can support me by: the technician, general, and extra class. You can simply support the channel at just $1 a month, or get the extra class membership with more benefits. So join the other patrons over there. As I said in the last podcast, once I get to 10 patrons, I will be giving away an FTM 300 radio, and I will have that. I do have that right in front of me here on the other side of the desk. So look forward to giving that away to one of the top 10 patrons when I get up to that level. So I appreciate your support. Thank you for supporting the channel, bringing this ham radio community together, helping us continue to grow and expand and provide knowledge. You know, my goal really is to be able to give technicians a way to learn and figure things out. I've had to go through and do things the hard way, and I want to make this ham radio experience a little easier for technicians to find a way to get started and get into things. And that's one of the things we're doing the topic today for simplex and duplex operations. So try and understand those concepts a little bit more and how people can utilize those better and use them more. I've been on a local repeater lately, and I make a call every day, you know, roughly about the same time, and it's a dead repeater. It's not much activity on there. I've got an hour-long drive. I can reach the repeater most of the way, but, you know, there is some areas that I can't once I get farther into Connecticut, and so, you know, I switch over to another one in Newington at that point, but I do try and listen to both of them, and I've even been listening to one repeater at work during the day, and it's not even, you know, there's no activity on that one either. So I definitely encourage more repeater use, and we'll talk about that a little bit more today as we get into that part of the show. First, let's break into a little news. Our top news story today takes us to Pennsylvania, which is hoping to become the next state in the U.S. to ban most drivers from using handheld wireless devices on the road. Raising concerns among ham radio community, Bill SB 37, sponsored by Senator Rosemary Brown, clears the state house, heads to the Senate. Exceptions include emergency responders, but excludes amateur radio, sparking worries for emergency communication. Miles A. Wicker, Jr., ARRL's Pennsylvania liaison, advocates for ham radio exemption, citing the vital role in emergencies. Efforts underway for resolution, says Wicker, amid Senate deliberations. Senator Brown's office silence on queries. Ham radio operators await decision, emphasize the importance of their role in public safety. So that's passed a lot of houses and states and other areas of the country where amateur radio did have an exception for communicating on the radio, and so hopefully that will certainly pass with the exception for amateur radio operators in Pennsylvania as well. Severe storms and over 60 tornadoes ravaged central U.S. for weeks, leaving destruction in Nebraska, Oklahoma, Texas, Missouri, and Iowa. President Biden declares major disaster in Oklahoma. Offering federal aid, Leila Gardner, section manager in Iowa, added that awareness is the best tool. She stressed that the amateur radio operators and ARES members work to help the National Weather Service and other served agencies in order to make their work and their community safer. In Iowa, recovery efforts underway, and 9 counties received state assistance. ARRL Iowa section manager emphasizes the importance of amateur radio and emergency response, citing recent networking at Central Iowa's Hamfest. ARRL urges preparedness and training for severe weather, highlighting the importance of communication and relationship. ARRL Learning Center offers courses for emergency communication and disaster radio. Stay vigilant and prepared, and stresses the ARRL Emergency Management Director, John Johnston, KE5, MHV. Go to if you're an ARRL member, you can certainly go out and get the full set of IMCOM courses. I think it's a section of 3 different courses at learn.aRRL.org. You can sign into that using your login for the ARRL, and you can definitely take all 3 of those courses, get a certificate on it, and so hope that you will take advantage of that if you are an ARRL member. I think you get maybe like a video or 2 if you're not a member, but you can certainly find that there's some value in that, and it sounds like a lot of people take advantage of those courses. So, and there's lots of other courses on there too. If you have not experienced it before, definitely go out and visit those courses. They're given by a lot of YouTubers and things like that. You can find some different ones on there where they have done some courses for the ARRL. And the final news story of the week, Young Ham debuts Kids on the Air initiative at Ohio's Hamvention, coming up in just 2 weeks, led by Jackson K6 KUK. Initiative fosters global community for young amateur radio enthusiasts, including launched as Gen Z Hams. Initiative expands with Discord server, Elmer program, and multi-mode digital platform. International collaboration includes hams from Australia. Visit the Kids on the Air booth at Hamvention for more information, or check out their website, Kids on the Air, for more details. All this news comes from the Amateur Radio Newsline. This week in Amateur Radio, the ARRL, with a release date of May 4th, 2024. Well, there we go. We got through some news there. Hopefully some highlights for you, some interesting things that we like to cover, things that I find always pertinent to have knowledge around. And so if you're taking your kid this year to Hamvention, hopefully that you'll be able to have him take advantage of that, and look forward to having you guys visit the ARRL youth booth as well for more information and getting young hams on the air. And it could be another final story, I guess. We do have a Young Ham of the Year award is due, I believe, by the end of May. And that's the Bill Pasternak Award. You can always find more information about that through Amateur Radio Newsline. And they have all their application information for the Young Ham of the Year. Certainly some bright and scholarly students that have been the recipient and winner of that the last couple of years, since I've been kind of interviewing them and talking to them, and filing those stories as well as we go. So certainly take interest in that when you can. Well, visit Club Gear Online for all your POTA and swag ham radio gear. Check out his recent items released over on his website. You can find them there as well. And The neatest thing is these Anderson power poles. You can see them. The dirty fixed field adapter power pole to Waco connector. You plug in 2 wires. You can clamp that down, and anyway, you get to see how that fits right on there. You can plug that power pole in real quick, and that makes it really nice to be able to use. So you can kind of get some other photos of that along the way, kind of an example of how that works, and hopefully you'll see that works out pretty good. As a quick field connect bag, you might want to throw in your MCOM bag there a little bit. So hopefully that works, and we'll see how that goes. So anyway, certainly take a look at that when you can. All right. Well, let's go into some other news here. Then we'll get into our segment for this week as we move forward. Check out the ARRL Hamfest schedule page for local Hamfest near you. May 11th, the ARRL Nebraska State Convention in Lincoln, Nebraska. Coming up next weekend, May 17th to the 19th, of course, Dayton Hamvention in Xenia, Ohio. I'll be there on Friday, and you should find me there on kind of Thursday afternoon, Friday, and hope that it will be another great Hamfest this year. Looks like a lot of people are anticipating going, and I wanted to bring something up a little bit about that. Maybe we'll try and get that in here towards the end of the show, talking a little bit about Hamvention. If not, I'll maybe try and do something later in the week with that if I don't get that into the end of this show here. So we'll see where it goes. May 31st to June 2nd is CPAC hosting the ARRL Northwestern Division Convention in Seaside, Oregon. So you can always find more information about local Hamfest on the ARRL Hamfest schedule page. And again, find that link in my show notes under patreon.com/the ham radio guy. I will post all that information there at the end of the show here. So let's get into segment B here, as I call it. And let's see if we can look at this information on simplex and duplex operation for beginners. And obviously, simplex being the most simplest communication form, using a single frequency for transmission and receiving a radio signal into a handheld device. And so think of this as maybe when you're a little kid and you have your little FRS or your little CB handheld radios. Your mom and dad gave you and your brother or your sister a little handheld radios, and you talk back and forth, and you'd play hide and seek or something, or cops and robbers, whatever you played. And you had these little cheap radios, 10-15 bucks a piece. That had 2 AA batteries in them. And you'd talk back and forth, and maybe you and your neighbor would talk back and forth and have fun with them between your houses or something. Those are simple, simplex operation. They were very simple radios. You're communicating in the simplest communication mode possible. And so simplex is also an amateur radio, and a lot of the times if you're at a community event or if you're working a parade or a bike-a-thon or something. Sometimes, quite often, you might be working in a simplex mode on a certain channel, or maybe you're just working a certain area of an event, and you could have a simplex mode just for that channel to talk amongst the people in that area. But if you need to go out and talk back to net control, you might switch channels to channel 2 or something to be able to do that. And so we also refer to simplex would be more direct communications. And it is direct, person to person. And, of course, other people can hear you on that simplex channel, but you're just specifically going between that radio and another radio. You're not using any type of intermediate device like a repeater, which we'll get into in just a moment here to talk more about. We'll talk more about that. But you're basically just going between those 2 radios. You're direct to one another, and there's no other equipment in between. So again, it is the most simplest, most common form of communication. Typically in the 2 meter or 440 meter bands is where you'll use these. And of course, those are the most popular because they'll be used in local events a lot of the times. You're not going to use an HF radio frequency of some sort on those events, like a parade or a bike-a-thon of some sort. So, and so you can get some really great, usually those are pretty short distances too. You may get a max of a mile out of that. Sometimes it might just be a couple hundred yards, depending on the terrain and obstructions and buildings and other things that might be, or the trees and leaf, or there's like fall or winter time where there's, maybe the signal can penetrate a little bit better through the trees, the hillsides, the terrains, things like that. And so it makes obviously a difference of how far you can communicate during that too as well. And are you using a handheld at 5 watts, or are you doing a simplex communication between two mobiles at 50 watts? Obviously will make a difference as well for your distance and how far you're going to communicate. And quite often when I'm traveling down the road at 146.52, I'll be monitoring, and we'll talk to people 7, 8, 9 miles away on simplex, sometimes 10, on that 2-meter radio. So you can certainly do some further distances on that, depending on the amount of power or the type of antenna that you're putting out. A quarter wave versus a 5/8 wave might even be you're doing 50 watts from your house with a 100-foot tower, and you got a 2-meter vertical on top. So those things all make a difference of what you have for simplex. But obviously you can have some great communication with that as well. And even if you did have, some ground wave propagation or some skywave propagation that might be, coming into the area or the region that you live, can certainly make a distance case as well, that you might increase your distances even more in simplex mode. And are you on like a simplex or single sideband versus just an FM side? So there's a lot of different cases and how simplex operation can work and how far you can go. But it's typically got again some limiting factors such as line of sight, your antenna height, your power, your obstructions, your terrain, vegetation, or just the curvature of the earth. Again, can make a difference of those. But again, it's that simple, direct line of sight radio communication like you had with those little HTs when you were younger. And so, again, typically, 1 to 2 miles, maybe 10 miles max with a mobile you would have. But it all depends on those factors I just listed. So it is the most simplest to set up, easy to use. You might, if you and your wife are, have a base station at home, she has one in her car, and you're at home, she might just call you and say, hey, I'm on the way to the grocery store from work. Do we need anything, that sort of thing. So it's one of those things that she might just call you versus going over the repeater and making that more of a well-known thing to everybody in the world. You might just have not necessarily a private frequency, but just the frequency you use between the two vehicles. You might have a buddy or a local group in an area. I know up in Tennessee there was a group that used like 146.475, I think, and they had somebody monitoring that pretty much all the time. And it was just a simplex kind of net or group that they would get on there and chat regularly and listen and talk. So it was very simple and didn't require anything, no technical skills or knowledge really required for that. But again, it had that limited range of what people could talk to, but it was just kind of call it the rough Nashville or Nashville suburban area that was happening. And, it really helps keep repeaters clear for other traffic when you're just wanting to get on there and BS and chit chat and have, common communication with others that might be in the area. So, but it really should be a part of everybody's communication plan to be able to use that. And it's good to have some other sub channels. I've literally in my handheld, I've got Alpha through Zulu, about 26 simplex channels that are listed by the ARRL or others as known as just simple simplex channels. And, you can use that for a variety of things. And maybe I'll try and put that list out there and as part of my show notes showing what those channels are. I'll have to pull that from my code plug, but we can talk about that whole nother code plug in another issue. But again, this is for the simplest operation. for new beginners or technicians. Some very basic information here. You may be an experienced ham, but sometimes it doesn't always hurt to be reminded of some of those things because we get used to being on HF or we get used to being on the repeater all the time, and we may not just do much for some simplex or maybe some 2-meter single sideband operations. So it's always good to have a refresher on this as well. And just remember when you're talking around your neighborhood, assume everyone's listening. People have scanners or things like that. It's or maybe part of a club. Other people can hear you, and certainly whatever conversation you're going to have is not private by any means on that simplex channel. Now it may be not heard by anybody else at that time because nobody's listening to that frequency, but it is very possible. Now, one thing to think about was the calling frequency for 2 meters and actually one for 440 as well, which I, for some reason, didn't really think about. I don't use it. I've never been on it, never called on it, and that was the 440 one. We'll get to that in just a second here. But both 2 meter and 440 or 70 centimeter has a calling channel similar to like the old channel 19 or channel 16. I think it was CB. The truckers that use for channel 19, they'll call other truckers in the area. And so we'll use this to kind of hail other amateur radio operators. And, that's 146.52 on the 2 meter calling frequency. And again, part of calling frequencies, you get on there, you call somebody, and then you try and move to maybe another channel of some sort, be an offset for that to allow that use case for another somebody else that might be an emergency priority mayday type situation that might need it. But a lot of people get into the argument that it's the calling frequency, but we can sit there and just chat simplex on it and BS all day long as well, because it's not widely used. I mean, I've traveled the country several times with this thing and using 146.52. I monitor every time I'm on the road, and I just don't hear a lot of traffic. There are certain parts of the country I've heard more traffic than others. Northern Alabama was great for that, near Huntsville. Parts of Indiana, I had some 146.52 traffic there. But overall, it's usually typically pretty quiet. I mean, I can spend 10, 12, 20 hours on the road and never hear anybody on 146.52. So I've done it, and I'd like to be able to hear more people talking on the channel. Or I've even got monitoring 146.52 on the back of my truck. So if another ham came up on me and wanted to try and get a hold of me and say, hey, W0MET, I got you on 5.2 here. Do you copy? I would be able to hear that all day long. So you can know who my call sign is. It's on my plate. It's on the back of my truck. And so I've got, the frequency there, monitoring 146.52, clearly stated on a sticker. And again, just don't hear much, a whole lot. But there's also the 70 centimeter, which is 446.000 megahertz. Now, I can't really say I remember or recall this being used much. Again, I've never used this one. Never reached out to anybody on it. Don't really, know that if it's ever really used much at all. But, if you're in an unknown area, it might be an initial way to establish communication. Something to think about. I don't have that programmed into my radios. I've got 146.52 as channel 1, but I've never used 446.000 as my 70 centimeter calling channel. And I may stick that in my radio. I may consider that as channel number 2, just to have it out there. A lot of people do monitor 440 a lot more than 2 meters, but everybody always kind of talks about 146.52, and so here we go. That's what we got with that. So it's good to have it on there. The thing is, when I'm traveling, I've got channel A as my 146.52, and my channel B is the 144.39 for APRS, and so it's both of my channels are tied up, so it's hard to get into a local repeater with that then if you're going to be tied up on that 5.2 channel, listening, monitoring, going into a city, traveling, whatever. If you have maybe pre-laid out all your frequencies for the road you're going down, and Repeater Book is great for that, to be able to help you out with those things. So repeaterbook.com will give you some of that information. In fact, I'll just see if I can pull it up here real quick and show you how to do that. For those who are on the audio podcast, repeaterbook.com, it helps if I type right. Something I did not know. Why does this give me books? I did not type that. So let's pull up this page. So you can see, I'm going to turn the logo portion off for that real quick. You can see repeater book here. Might have my old login there. I can't remember. Not something I was really thinking about logging into. Let's see. All right, I don't remember that right offhand, but let's see if we can go to Northern Maker and Repeaters. It might not let me in. It will. So there we go. So we got into this, and you can pull up, I'll just put, going through Massachusetts. That's where I'm at. And you can literally go in and see, 318 repeaters in the database for Massachusetts. And you can choose if you want 2 meter or 70 centimeter, 23 centimeter, 10 meters. You can choose them all. And in this case, let's go with 2 meters. And we can, pull them up, and you can see, you can find the Echolink ones, you can find the DMR ones, you can find the System Fusion ones, and you can, see all the ones that are by the location where they're at, which is nice because I'll put them in my radio as Deerfield. So when I'm going up in Deerfield, I just scroll over to the D's and go, oh, there's Deerfield. I can find that pretty easy. So that's always nice. You can always map your results. Oh, let's go into Google Maps. And you'll see, you can see where all the repeaters are. Obviously, most of them are around the Boston area. But, as you're traveling along I-90 going out through here, you can, certainly, get some repeaters along the way. There's some gaps in there, obviously. But you can see this goes up 91 here. Remember the highway over on that side of things. But anyway, that's 91 there, and that's going out into the far west side of the state. But so you can search and do maps and special modes if you just want, like, let's go do System Fusion. So let's go find the System Fusion repeaters only. So you can find all the different ones just in that area. Has a variety of stuff in there. Shows other resources, so you can enter by state. So let's go Massachusetts. Let's see if it shows up. Let's go 2 meter. Gotta get to the CAPTCHA. No mode. Well, we had a failure there for some reason, but anyway, you kind of get it. You can map a lot of different things this way, and go back into home. There we go. So you can find all kinds of information, do proximity of where you're at. You can type all the information in here and get a lot of good details out of this. I could probably make a video just on this alone of how to use Repeater Book and be able to come up with things across the board of what you can do with this and how you can search, whether you just want United States or Canada. You want it just gives you 10 meters there, but I've not played with this a lot. Just didn't need to. I usually do my home page, and I guess it's going to require me to get up there. Come on. Page is not going to load. Anyway, for those on the podcast, audio only, just go take a look at the YouTube video channel on this. You can kind of see some of the details around some of that. But it'll give you a full database of all the repeaters. It does stay pretty well up to date for the most part. So it is a great way to go on that as well. So if you're interested, go visit that and you'll see how that is and how that works out overall. So anyway, let's get into talking about repeaters a little bit as we move into this. And repeaters are where amateur radio really shines. That's what we have. A lot of the repeaters are typically on a backup setup, and they will have battery backup generators and stuff to them. And so they can stay online even during storms and work for a while, but the batteries will eventually die as well. So But from a preparedness perspective, we usually have really good coverage, and you saw that the state of Massachusetts had pretty good coverage. There's some gaps in there, obviously, but you know, repeaters give us a lot of coverage. So if you were, you know, on one side of a hill, and you had a friend on the other side of the hill, if you had a repeater in the middle up on the mountaintop, and you guys were 25 miles apart, you know, from that repeater, you could probably hit that with a good 50-watt mobile, and maybe even you know, a little bit less power than that, maybe 25 watts. You could hit that, and certainly talk back and forth to each other. So where you might not be able to talk line of sight 50 miles, but now because you're on each side of a hill or a mountain, and you get up into this part of the state of Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, where it's a little bit more hilly, more rocky, and you know, whatnot, you get more valleys and whatnot there. You definitely want to be able to have access to a repeater, because you probably won't be able to have the ability to get out of a valley or you know, down in a hill somewhere on the, you know, backside of a hill where you need simplex. You know, simplex operation just simply would not work. So, but let's talk a little bit about what repeaters are. And repeaters utilize a duplex operation, where there's two frequencies involved. You have the input and basically an output, or sometimes they'll refer to them as a repeater pair. And one frequency is the transmit, and the other one is a receive. Now, these are basic technician level 1 course information here that I'm really sharing, but want to, you know, even maybe if you're new to ham radio or you haven't been in ham radio, you want to get in and you want to looking to understand this a little bit better. It's a great way to, you know, to learn this. So you know, so you're talking on one frequency when you push your button on your handheld, and you push the talk button, and then when you release it, it gives you another signal back of what you're actually receiving on. So you got the input, the output, or the receive and transmit, as we might call it, and you know, you'll be on a different signal or a different channel frequency when you are transmitting than you are when you're receiving, when you listen. So, and this all takes place basically in real time. It something automatically done through the radio when you set up your radio, when you program your radio, and you know, it is not you know, like a phone call. You can talk to your brother, your family, a friend, and you can, you know, kind of talk over each other, but you can't do that in amateur radio. And there's a, you know, even though it's a duplex, what they consider a duplex operation, it is still a single operation. You have to key up, press the button to talk, and then when you're done, you release that push to talk button, and then you can hear the next person key up, and they will talk, and they will share their information back. And so that is the, you know, essential basic communication of a repeater. And, you know, with a good set of radios, you know, placed again at the elevation point, usually on a hillside or a mountain peak of some sort, you know, the higher the elevation obviously increases the line of sight that a person could use a handheld to be able to talk to someone else on the other side of the range. And it will give that repeater a longer range distance as well, to be able to make that communication back and forth. So really there's kind of two things to a repeater. I call it total capable range or the extended range. So the extended range is the largest benefit of a repeater, and that you can communicate across entire cities with the same amateur radio you used to communicate with only a few miles in simplex, and just by communicating through the repeater. Now the total capable range of a repeater is what is the total distance that repeater can communicate. Is it 25 miles? Is it just 13 miles? Depending upon, you know, again, terrain, its height, the antennas, and you know, any other vegetation or obstructions that might come across. And so your range may vary on certain repeaters. Not every repeater is going to give you a distance of, you know, 25 or 50 miles. It may just be shorter distance, and obviously VHF or UHF will make a difference on that as well. So if you had a repeater at the center of a circle and the radius is 25 miles, The diameter of the circle is obviously 50 miles back and forth. And the diameter is the repeater's total range then. That is the total capable range of being on it. So if you're on the edge of the circle, you could, that repeater can do technically 50 miles then, even though you're only 25 miles from it, because it's got the other half of the other diameter of the circle to work. So that would be the total capable range versus just the extended range where it's, has, the limited capability of where it's working. And maybe sometimes you might have a network of repeaters that can have an extended range as well. So that might be where I can talk on one repeater, it's linked via the internet to another repeater, and so now my mileage and my distance can totally increase more than that. And so you have a linked repeater system. Massachusetts has a great one. Minnesota has a great repeater system. Tennessee has a great repeater system. I think a lot of states have a lot of different linked repeater systems for amateur radio, and that is what's great about our system, that we're able to do that and literally talk in 2 meters across the state as a technician and not just be limited to that distance of simplex communication, talking to your buddy, or being limited to just that repeater. You can actually talk across the state to someone and get more weather data information, whatever it might be, from another person that might be reporting back to a weather service or something like that, that might be in a different area or different region or part of the state. So you can use that repeater system, linked repeater system, assuming it's working, or the RF connectors, internet, that sort of thing, that ties that together, is certainly working. So it creates for a large independent communications network of amateur radio repeaters, which is great. And so, I think there's something like some 20-some thousand repeaters across the U.S. I've been trying to build one myself, just waiting for that repeater pair to come through, which reminds me I need to send the email back to them again asking what the status of this is. It's been like a year and a half, and I still have not received that repeater pair yet. Now I'm asking for 2 meters, which I know is a very difficult and long process to be able to go through, because just a limited number of capability of repeater pairs available, and the cross interference of having that go into another state or another region, another area, even with some CTCS tones. So it's difficult to come up with. I understand that, and just can't believe it's taken this long to be able to do that. And so, each repeater is typically, when you apply for a repeater pair like I have, I've had to go through the Wisconsin Repeater Council to be able to achieve that as a coordinated repeater. And then they give me a transmit and receive frequency, typically about 600 megahertz offset from that. And if it's 500 megahertz on a 440 repeater, which I'm about to switch, but all my antennas, my duplexers, everything I have is set for 2 meters. So I don't really want to have to switch all that over. And go by. I do have a 440 duplexer if I want. I just don't have a 440 antenna, so we'll see what that does. But again, I'm hoping that we can get a 2 meter pair and make that work. But usually repeaters are managed by somebody individually, sometimes a club, or somebody like that along those lines is taking care of the repeaters, and maybe just be a group of guys that do it, that want to have one up in the area. But in addition to repeaters, they're designed to operate autonomously. You don't have to have someone on site sitting there monitoring and whatnot along the way. You don't have to have someone on site for that. And so, it's kind of autonomous, a thing all by itself, and so it doesn't require anybody else to be there to do that. Now, sometimes you can have some real capabilities in the repeaters to be able to change things or set certain tones, set up a recording, whatever. You can change those things, but that requires the internet. And so, if the internet's not working, power storm comes through, you may have to go on site to that tower and figure that out and fix it. Sometimes if it's a link system, then one side could be down, but not the other one. So that may be an issue you might experience too. But especially if it was damaged through a storm or something of some nature that happened. But amateur radio repeaters overall aren't really a true network. Like the internet, you'd have to change channels and switch to a different repeater. and so it would be the person you're trying to talk to. But they are kind of linked at least, maybe not truly networked, but linked. And so you might have an area with multiple repeaters covering the area that might be able to remain online during storms as well. So that one goes down, the others around the area would still work. And so again, they're just maybe that link connection could have been stormed past that and hit that one particular one. That's why it's down, not working. But typically those systems work out really well and they're really great together. The other thing you might want to consider is backup power. I did mention that briefly earlier, and a lot of repeater owners will have that ability for backup power for it to last for a while. It's sometimes generators, maybe a battery backup, it may or may not last long, depending on power and how big of batteries you have there, etc. But it's always good to have. You might have backup antennas as well. Some repeater sites have a backup antenna on a tower. If someone gets hit, lightning strike or something takes it out, you have another antenna you can switch to or make it work. If you just have a single pole antenna like a DB224 or something like that, and you don't have a transmit and receive antenna, if that one gets hit by lightning, it's done. If your transmitter gets hit by lightning, you might still have the receive antenna, so you might have to find a different way to switch over to something else, or you might have to, if you're a repeater owner here, this wouldn't necessarily pertain to just a normal user of the repeater, but you might have to climb up there and replace that transmit antenna of some sort if that's the case, or that single antenna if that's all you had. And so, reason to use a duplexer is to avoid using two repeaters, two antennas, one for transmit and one for receive. You just have the one single antenna, and it's doing the receive and transmit both for you in those duplexers. And so, I don't know that a lot of sites have backup antennas, but sometimes they might. But you'd have to require somebody to come out here and climb the tower, find a company, find an individual, find somebody that can do it. Depending on what tower you have it on, or if it's on your own site, how soon you can get in there, and whether it's got storm damage or there's part of the infrastructure of the tower itself might be damaged or hurt due to the storm that came through. One thing I found for talking about repeater use too, you can link and deactivate repeaters. Again, talked about that linked repeater system across states. Sometimes you can just link a couple repeaters that may not normally be linked together, but if they have a system like the Ace2 System Fusion, you can link those into the system and use it for a bike race or a parade or something that might be covering more of a larger distance, where a simplex operation might not work between individual users. And so it's a function you can turn it on and off, and it's kind of cool. I've seen that done. Not done a lot of that myself, but I've been in part of activities where you've had to go in and link repeaters together for certain activities and special situations, maybe like a special weather event or a special or severe weather event or a special event of some sort where that's happened. So again, I know System Fusion is really great about that overall. So any disadvantages of repeater systems? Again, those conversations can be heard at long distances, long ranges. Sometimes you've got to push the button, wait a second for it to key up, and then talk for those linked repeater systems to work functionally, and not have, if you have just MET, it's like, well, you skipped off W0 completely. As an example of my call sign, where if you just press the button on Simplex, you can just do W0 MET, and you don't have to wait for any tones or anything key up for that repeater. That to key up the other repeater on the other side that it might be linked to. So if you do it in a linked repeater system, you might have multiple users on there covering a larger area. Means there's more users, more activity, and so it might be busy. It might be hard to get into. Share audio in between maybe a group of people. You got 10, 15 people using it at the same time for net. It's hard to have that single conversation over the multiple repeater sites at that point. And so it really ties up both repeaters as well. The one that the one user is using and the one that the other user is using, they're both tied up now versus not having anything free. Obviously, if there is an emergency or an increased need for traffic, that can hopefully those users can stop what they're doing and let that traffic prevail and be able to take the precedence. But it is something that works. Something when I first started amateur radio, we had auto patches. That was before I was familiar with linked repeaters, but now auto patches where you can make a phone call over that. That was a really cool system. Done it a few times. I don't know that any repeaters out there, they may still have the function, but probably don't do it. And so, that's kind of a cool feature back in the day, using your DTMF phones tones to make that phone call. So, that was a cool feature back then. Again, with cell phones, everything nowadays, not really a need for that, but you certainly have the capability on some systems out there probably still be able to do that. And again, we talked about repeater books. We've talked about Simplex-Duplex operation today. So ARRL does have a repeater directory as well. If you prefer a paper copy and you're traveling and you don't want to look up what it was online, they do. Repeater Book does have an app that's really great to find what's local in your area. Even though I can say it is not necessarily accurate because one of the local repeaters here in Massachusetts does not show up on the system when I pull it up on a repeater directory online. So in the app, so it is what it is. But the book is great. I haven't bought one for a long time. It's gotten bigger and bigger, thicker and thicker, with, again, over 20-some thousand repeaters out there in the country. It's hard to be able to look at all that, but the book's, decent size, and it can certainly be purchased from the ARRL.org website. And again, that was really more nice to have before the days of cell phones, and you didn't have an app and everything to be able to pull that information up. You were more limited, so the book was more a thing. I mean, I literally carried one in my truck all the time. It was something I had to have. So nowadays, again, with the cell phone, the app of the repeater book, you don't necessarily have to have that anymore. But having those Alpha through Zulu channels in there are nice to have. Again, for those simplex communications, it's nice to know if you can use the repeater if necessary. It's a great benefit of communication that you can have when preparing for emergencies, having those pre-programmed and ready to go in your code plug and making them readily available and accessible to you versus having to program them. But knowing how to program your radio on the fly is an important aspect as well of amateur radio, to be able to do that even if you're traveling, how you can pull up a repeater if you need be and find that frequency and set that tone if the case should arise and you need that. Again, get have those resource guides available. Maybe you print off a piece of paper with some frequencies and stuff as you go through some of the cities that you're traveling through, so you can pull those up and have them as a quick reference guide as you're traveling. Even if you don't use a repeater book or pre-program those under your radio, maybe you just have a resource guide of some sort with you that would help that out. So I hope that this is all helpful for you today, and that you'll find this handy to have and be available to you as some of the thoughts and things that I have talked about today for simplex and duplex operation. Well, I'm going to bring that show to a close as we go into this. I'm going to try and bring, I don't know, we did talk about bringing the site back on here for doing stuff at the end here, but I feel like the show's kind of going long and getting some time into this, so I will try and do more, another segment on something like this and those other items, talking about those topics I discussed earlier. I may have to replay this myself just to remember that. But anyway, if you're looking for all things ham radio, visit the Ham Radio Guy website. It's patreon.com/the Ham Radio Guy, and you'll find informative content, product reviews, and exciting blog posts over there on patreon.com. and consider joining the conversation and supporting the channel along with other Patreons. And I really appreciate your support. We're well over 5,500 podcasts downloaded now, and additional subscribers to the channel. And I want to say thank you. I really appreciate that support. It is humbling, and it's an honor to be able to do this for you guys. I love doing it. It's a great time. Thank you for your patience as I go through, a job change here, as I did get a new job. And so you'll find out more about that down the road as well. But hope that you learned something this week. And, if you enjoyed the podcast, again, we appreciate you putting a thumbs up or a like to the channel, and become a subscriber wherever you get your podcast, whether you're going to subscribe to YouTube or a podcast channel. And if you can rate and review the show, it really helps our analytics. And go out to Spotify or Apple Podcast. And again, you can go old school and just tell your friends about this. I was looking through my podcast this morning on Apple Podcast, trying to find more ham radio other podcasts myself that I even listen to, and there's not a lot of us out here. So again, appreciate you supporting the channel and listening in. And be sure to follow us over on social media on twitter.com and patreon.com/the ham radio guy. And we'll look forward to talking to you soon. Hope that you learned something this week as well, and hope that we help you in your ham radio operations. If you have questions or comments, please feel free to leave them on Twitter or under the podcast comments. And till next time, as always, in the chair and on the air, I'm the ham radio guy, W0MET, say 73.